Diane, and this is Diane's Fantasy Football. Going into week 7, your top guys are guys like Matt Stafford, Josh McCown. I don't know if you remember my advice from last week, but I said take a chance and play Josh McCown. You're welcome. I'm really liking this Barnage-McCown combo. Barnage must have taken McCown out for a real nice steak dinner. Again, Freeman continues to be a total stud. Devontae Freeman is the 6th highest running back in the league. Martavius Bryant had a monster game this past weekend. He had over 130 yards and 2 touchdowns. He will do the same this weekend against the 25th ranked Chiefs defense. Guys are definitely going to want to start this weekend. Le'Veon Bell, Mark Ingram, Matt Forte, Marshawn Lynch, Frank Gore, Todd Gurley, Dion Lewis, Devontae Freeman, Justin Forsett, Larry Fitzgerald, and Antonio Brown. You're going to want to start Rams defense for the next 2 weeks. And as much as it pains me to say this, because Tennessee is my team, you're going to want to start Atlanta's defense against Tennessee. Although the Broncos are undefeated, Peyton Manning has not thrown for over 300 yards since Game 3. And he's had 7 picks. Papa Pay's average yard per reception is a league low at 6.4 yards per completion. He is no longer an elite fantasy quarterback. Sometimes I'm not sure if Peyton Manning knows the difference between tossing a football and tossing a pizza. Guys you're definitely going to want to pick up this weekend are going to be Marvin Jones, James Starks, Brian Hoyer, maybe Landry Jones, stud or dud. Where did Starks come from? He had a total of 117 yards and 2 touchdowns. Yeah, Eddie Lacy can go ahead and stay on the bench. Russell Wilson finally had a light bulb moment when he realized that Jimmy Graham was on his team last weekend against Carolina. He had 8 catches on 12 targets, so don't give up on Jimmy Graham just yet. Jeremy Hill had 16 carries for 56 yards and 1 touchdown. If you look at this guy's stats, it's kind of like he only shows up every other game. But he's also the go-to guy in the red zone. They're on bye this weekend. To me, he's kind of like a first date. You don't know if you're going to go home alone or if you're going to get a touchdown. So pick him up and start him at your own risk. I would definitely start DeAndre Hopkins. Hopkins went off this weekend against Jacksonville. 10 catches, 148 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Marvin Jones has scored a touchdown in half of the games since he has played this season. And he had that awesome one-handed catch on Sunday. I haven't seen that much ball control since Tim Tebow was at the Playboy Mansion. He is on a bye this week, but if you need a wide receiver for next week, go ahead and pick him up. Brandon Marshall already has over 400 receiving yards this season. When Ryan Fitzpatrick isn't crying, he really likes throwing to B. Marsh. Look for Brandon Marshall to have a great game, especially after that ridiculous catch last weekend against Washington. It may be a little challenging for the Pats defense to stop Chris Ivory and this stud. Antonio Gates continues to be a grower. He is Rivers' #1 receiver, and they face Oakland this weekend. The Raiders are dead last in the league in yards to opposing tight ends. Last weekend, I put Megatron in the dud category. I'm going to go ahead and take him out and put him back in the stud category. Megatron owned Chicago last weekend, and I'm pretty sure Minnesota's D isn't going to be able to stop him. Duds, Pierre Garçon, who? Julio Jones, Randall Cobb, and Allen Robinson. Duds. With teams like Denver and Green Bay on byes, you're going to want to consider picking up these studs. Blake Bortles could be a really strong bye week fill-in. Benjamin Watson had a huge game against the Falcons last weekend. Consider picking him up if you need a tight end. Dallas's running back, Christine Michael, will start over Josh Randall, but don't look for him to do too much because Dallas really hasn't figured out their situation yet. Rookie wide receiver Stefon Diggs has finally earned himself some street cred. He had 13 catches for 216 yards. He's a worthwhile pickup if your wide receiver is on bye. They're at Detroit this weekend, and Detroit is like that slutty girl that gives up points to everyone. Quarterback time! Phillip Rivers dominated. If you have Phillip Rivers, continue to start him, at least for the next 3 games. He will be going up against the 3 worst passing defenses in the league. Brian Hoyer, his past 3 games have been strong. He's had 7 touchdowns and just 1 pick to go along with 837 passing yards. He's up against the Dolphins next, and he's going to walk in like... Landry Jones might be a sneaky quarterback to start. There are still a lot of good options out there, but with lots of quarterbacks on byes, and if you really like Pittsburgh, I would say give him a try. I finally got my Mariota jersey. I'm just so sad. Watching him take all of those hits like that really just hurts. year. Like, I don't understand why they couldn't have taken him out earlier so that Mettenberger could have taken all those sacks for him. No one likes getting sacked that much. Not even me. Mariota will be back in a couple of weeks, and we will both be wearing our jerseys. Cam Newton had a great game against the Seahawks. There's just something that the Seahawks aren't getting right. Carson Palmer came off his best passing yard game since 2009. He threw for 43 yards, but he had 2 picks. This week, they're at Baltimore, who rank at the bottom of the league in passing defense. So look for him to have a really great game. Guess who's back? Baltimore Ravens wide receiver Steve Smith Sr. is back. This dude is super old, but he keeps putting up the points like a boss. He managed to score 1 touchdown last weekend against the 49ers, but they still lost. Brandon LaFell is finally eligible to play this Sunday. Don't know exactly when in the game he'll get any action, but he was the Patriots' #2 wideout last season. And he finished 23rd amongst wide receivers. I'm Diane, and this is Diane's Fantasy Football. I'll see you guys next week.